If you listen closely in the background, you'll hear the music of Louis Armstrong, one of the famous jazz singers and trumpet players. This is one of my favorite songs, What a Wonderful World. Well, I had a lot of fun this week as I learned more about Louis Armstrong through a nonfiction book titled A Horn for Louis. This book was written by Eric Kamel. It's found in the nonfiction section of your library. It's an early chapter book with about 100 pages and written for grades, second and up. I really enjoyed this book and came to understand and know Louis Armstrong in different ways. For example, did you know he had a nickname? It was called the Big Dipper. And it has something to do with a big mouth and ice cream. You'll have to read it more to find out. Also in this book, what I loved is there's some illustrations. Let me show you one. This is a picture of Louis Armstrong. He grew up in a shack outside of New Orleans. So poor, he had no bedroom of his own and not even his own bed. He slept on the floor with his sister and his mom. In fact, Louis Armstrong never had the opportunity of going to school. But instead, he was blessed enough to have a good job where he worked at the junkyard for $1 a day. This dollar helped provide food and shelter for his family. One thing I wanted to teach you about a nonfiction book, and when you're trying to find a good one to read, is you want to be able to look and identify the author and his credentials. Is he qualified to teach on this subject? Well, Eric Kamel happened to grow up in a neighborhood right outside New Orleans, close to where Louis Armstrong grew up. And so in writing this book, he went and he visited the places, the streets, the locations that this book took place. And then he read the autobiography of Louis Armstrong and read many memoirs that Louis Armstrong wrote to be able to tell this story, so you can be assured that they are facts. The next criteria in evaluating a children's book nonfiction is if the information is relevant. Well, since it's actually based on his own writings, it is relevant to Louis Armstrong. Will you find it interesting? Will children find it interesting? Well, I found it interesting, and I think there's so many opportunities to teach children about someone that did great things and about music by reading this book. Let me tell you a little bit about the story. Louis Armstrong worked at a junkyard for $1 a day, but it was far from his home, and so every morning he would arise before the sun came up, and he would walk to work. And as he walked, he would sing. Or he would beat out music on the garbage cans along the street and in the neighborhoods, always listening to music coming out of people's businesses and their homes. And Louis Armstrong wanted to be a musician. One day on the way to work, he happened to find a little metal horn. And although this horn had no buttons to be able to play real music or notes, he discovered that if he held his 2 fingers over his mouth to the horn and moved the fingers around, he was able to form different notes that would come out of the horn, different tones. And so he got really good at that, and all the neighbors recognized him as he would come down the street playing his song. One day, some bullies happened to tackle him and take his little horn away, and it devastated Louis because he loved his horn so much. Well, how he acquires his first real horn is a story of integrity, of love, and of motivation. And so I'm going to leave that story for you to discover as you check out this book. When reading a book like this with children, there's so many things that you can teach them. First of all, you could do a unit on jazz. You could teach children what jazz is, the rhythms and the beats to the jazz music, and help them learn to construct it themselves. You can make your own musical instruments. This is a story of a boy that didn't have money to be able to take lessons to learn things, but he had a desire. And that is something our children need to learn, is that when you really want to know something bad enough or want to do something bad enough, as long as you keep trying and keep working at it, you can achieve it. And that is what Louis Armstrong did. And he had It's a Wonderful Life. And he did have a wonderful life. or It's a Wonderful World, and he did look at the world as a wonderful place. I hope you'll check out this book, and thanks for listening.